They called her nothing. No rank, no weapon, no past anyone could trace. Yet in the underbelly of this city, where killers hunted for sport, one rule spread in whispers. If you hear nothing, run. No alarms, no screams, just shadows falling where predators once stood. Men twice her size vanished. Gangs armed to the teeth refused contracts with her name attached. And every time someone tried to follow her, all they found was blood and silence. Tonight, the most dangerous syndicate in the city has set a trap. They believe fear can be bought. They believe silence can be broken. They are wrong, because the girl they're hunting doesn't carry a weapon. She is the weapon. The rain had been falling for 3 days without mercy, washing the city in a gray blur that made every street look the same. Neon signs flickered like dying stars, reflecting off puddles that had broken glass and old blood. This was a city where predators ruled, men who carried knives like toys and guns like prayers. And somewhere in this maze of fear, she walked. No one knew her real name. On the streets, they called her the Quiet One. She moved through the alleys like a rumor, hood low, steps light, never touching a wall, never leaving a trace. She didn't carry a bag. No visible weapon. Just a thin black coat that clung to her frame and boots worn from miles of running. If you passed her in a crowd, you would never look twice. That was her gift. But if you hunted people for a living, if you stalked the weak and fed on their screams, you learned to fear the ordinary. Because the Quiet One hunted back. Tonight, she stood across the street from a rusted building that used to be a textile factory. Now it was home to the Graveshade Syndicate, a gang so brutal that even other criminals avoided their territory. They trafficked, tortured, erased. And 3 hours ago, they had taken a girl from a bus stop. 16 years old. Wrong place. Wrong time. The Quiet One had seen it happen. She had been sitting on a bench, pretending to scroll through a dead phone when the van pulled up. 2 men. Fast hands. A muffled cry. Then nothing. People nearby looked away. They always did. She didn't. She followed. Now across the street. She closed her eyes and slowed her breathing. In. Out. The city noise faded until all she heard was the steady drum of rain and her own heartbeat. This moment mattered. Every choice from here would decide who lived and who didn't. She stepped off the curb. Inside the factory, the air smelled of oil and rot. Pipes hissed overhead. Shadows stretched long and sharp across the cracked concrete floor. Somewhere deep inside, a radio played low, distorted music, the kind men used to drown out guilt. She slipped through a broken side door and melted into the dark. 2 guards stood near a staircase, laughing, rifles slung loose, attention lost in their own jokes. They never saw her. She came from behind like a breath of cold air. 1 second they were there. The next, one was on the ground, eyes wide, unable to scream as she pressed a finger into a nerve point at his neck. He went limp. The other turned too late. She twisted his arm, used his weight against him, and drove him into the wall. A soft crack. Silence again. She dragged them into the shadows and kept moving. This was not strength. She was not strong. She was small light. But she had learned where bodies broke, where fear lived, where pain ended fights faster than rage ever could. Every step she took echoed memories she tried to bury. A door slammed. A man shouting. Her mother's voice, shaking. Then nothing but silence for years. She shook it away. Focus. A hallway opened into a wide room filled with crates. She climbed onto one, crouched, and scanned below. For men. 1 smoking. 1 counting cash. 2 watching a door at the far end. The kind of door that meant someone important was behind it. The girl. The Quiet One waited. She picked up a small pebble from the crate and flicked it across the room. It hit metal with a sharp ping. 1 guard frowned and walked toward the sound. She dropped behind him. Her arm wrapped his throat. Not to choke, just to cut airflow long enough. He struggled for seconds, then stopped. She laid him down gently, like he was sleeping. Another man noticed. Too late. She moved. Fussed. A kick to the knee. A palm strike to the jaw. The man crumpled. The one with the cigarette pulled his gun, but she was already there, knocking it aside, slamming his head into the crate. He slid down, eyes rolling. The last guard froze, fear flooding his face. "It's her," he whispered. She tilted her head. That was all. He ran. She didn't chase. Predators who ran spread the message better than any body ever could. She approached the door at the end of the room. Her hand hovered over the handle. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if she was too late? She pushed. Inside was a small office. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh light over a terrified girl tied to a chair. Bruises marked her arms. Her eyes widened when she saw the shadow at the door. "Please," the girl whispered. "I won't. It's okay," the quiet one said softly. Her voice was calm, steady, human. The girl stared. They said you weren't real." The quiet one crossed the room and cut the ropes with a shard of metal she had taken from a crate. "They lie," she said. Before they could move, heavy footsteps thundered outside. Slow, confident. A voice followed. Deep, amused. "So," it said, "the ghost finally shows herself." The quiet one turned toward the door. Her heart began to pound. Because this voice she knew. And if he was here, this night was about to become far more than a rescue. The footsteps stopped just outside the office door. The air itself seemed to tighten, like the building was holding its breath. The quiet one placed herself between the girl and the doorway, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the thin crack of light beneath the door. The handle turned slowly. A tall man stepped in, ducking slightly under the frame. He wore a dark coat over body armor, and a thin scar ran from his temple down to his cheek. His eyes were calm, too calm for a place like this. In one hand, he held a pistol, not raised, not threatening. Just there. Behind him, two more men filled the hallway, rifles ready. "Well," he said, studying her like a puzzle, "you're smaller than the stories." She didn't answer. The girl behind her whimpered, gripping the back of the chair. The man smiled. "Name's Rook. I run this place. And you've made a mess of my night." The quiet one tilted her head slightly, listening. 3 men in front. More out there. She counted breathing, weight shifts, the faint scrape of boots. Her mind built a map. "You don't carry anything," Rook continued. "No knife. No gun. Nothing. Yet my men won't even say your name. They just say her." He took a step closer. "Tell me, what makes them afraid?" She finally spoke. "You should leave." Rook laughed softly. "I like her. She's brave." Then his eyes hardened. "But brave people die first." He nodded. The men behind him rushed forward. The quiet one moved. She grabbed the metal chair and flung it into the first man, knocking him back into the hallway. As the second raised his rifle, she lunged low, sliding across the floor, kicking his ankle out from under him. The gun fired into the ceiling as he fell. She rolled, came up behind him, and drove her elbow into the base of his skull. He went still. Rook stepped back, surprised but not panicked. He fired once. The bullet tore through the wall where her head had been a second earlier. She was already moving again. She used the doorway as cover, darting in and out, forcing him to keep adjusting. Another shot grazed her shoulder. Pain flared, hot and sharp, but she didn't slow. Pain meant you were alive. She rushed him. Rook reacted fast, swinging the pistol like a club. It caught her cheek, sending stars across her vision. She stumbled, but caught his wrist, twisting until the gun clattered to the floor. They crashed into a desk. Up close, she could smell him, metal, smoke, confidence. "You're good," he grunted, tried to overpower her. He was stronger. He pushed her back inch by inch. She leaned in close and whispered, "So were they." Then she drove her knee into his side, right where she knew the ribs were weakest. He gasped. She followed with a sharp strike to his throat, just enough to steal his breath. He staggered, choking. She didn't finish him. She backed away, keeping distance, watching. Rook dropped to one knee, coughing hard, eyes burning with anger. "Go," she said again. "Now." For a moment, it looked like he might lunge at her. But then he smiled through the pain. "This isn't over," he rasped. "You can't hide forever." He forced himself up and retreated into the hallway, dragging the last conscious man with him. Their footsteps faded. Silence returned. The quiet one turned back to the girl, who was staring at her like she was looking at something impossible. "It's okay," she said again, more gently. We're leaving. They moved through the factory fast, avoiding the main rooms, slipping through shadows until they reached the broken side door. The rain hit them like a curtain. Outside, the girl finally spoke. Why do you do this? The quiet one paused. I don't like monsters, she said. And they don't like me. They walked 2 streets away. She led the girl to a small clinic hidden between closed shops. A tired-looking nurse opened the door and nodded when she saw who it was. No questions. Just help. As the girl was taken inside, she grabbed the quiet one's sleeve. What's your name? The quiet one hesitated, then shook her head. You don't need it. She turned to leave. But as she stepped back into the rain, her hand went to her wounded shoulder. Blood soaked through the fabric. Her vision blurred for a second. She forced herself to keep walking, because she knew something had changed. Rook wasn't just another predator. He had looked at her and seen more than a rumor. He had seen a challenge. And worse, he had seen her face. She disappeared into the night, unaware that high above, on a nearby rooftop, a red light blinked once and went dark. Someone had been watching. And now, the hunt was about to turn. The wound burned as the rain washed over it, but the quiet one didn't stop until the city noise swallowed her again. Sirens wailed far away. Somewhere, a train screamed along rusted tracks. Life went on, blind to the blood being spilled in its cracks. She reached an abandoned subway entrance and slipped inside. The stairs led down into darkness, where broken turnstiles and graffiti-covered walls marked a world the city had forgotten. This was where she hid when she needed to think. She pressed her back against the cold tiles and finally let herself breathe. Her hand came away red. Stupid, she muttered, tearing a strip from the inside of her coat and wrapping it tight around her shoulder. The pain steadied her, kept her present. She couldn't afford weakness. Not now, because Rook would not let this go. She could still see his eyes, sharp, curious, not afraid enough. Men like him didn't retreat. They adapted. They studied. And now he had something no one else ever had. Her face. She pulled her hood lower and pushed off the wall, heading deeper into the tunnels. The subway curved into a wide chamber where old maintenance rooms lined the sides. One of them, hidden behind a bent metal door, was hers. Inside were a thin mattress, a small lantern, and a box of supplies she collected over years. Bandages, water, energy bars, bits of wire, a cracked mirror. She sat on the floor and cleaned the wound as best she could. It wasn't deep, but it would slow her. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Dark eyes, pale skin, a faint bruise already forming on her cheek. She looked younger than she was. People always thought that. She hated mirrors. They showed her things she tried to forget. Her mind drifted back uninvited. A tiny apartment, a drunk man, shouting, then her mother on the floor, not moving, while the man walked out free. No one came. No one cared. She had been 12. That night, she learned 2 things. Monsters were real, and no one was coming to stop them. So she had. A soft echo broke her thoughts. Footsteps, distant but real. She froze, lantern dimmed, breath held. Another sound followed. A low hum. Electronics. Drones. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Rook. She grabbed her few supplies and slipped out the back of the room, moving through narrow maintenance tunnels as a faint red glow swept across the walls behind her. They were searching. She moved faster, pain be damned. The tunnel opened into a wider underground platform. Old trains sat dead on the tracks like rusted beasts. She darted between them, keeping to shadow, listening to the buzz of drones overhead. A voice echoed through a speaker, distorted but familiar. You're impressive, Rook said, but this ends tonight. She clenched her jaw. She climbed onto one of the trains and crept along the roof. A drone zipped past, scanning. She waited until it turned, then leaped down, landing hard, rolling to soften the impact. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she kept moving. She spotted a maintenance ladder leading up to a street exit. Almost there. Then a spotlight snapped on. There, Rook said. Men poured in from both sides of the platform, guns raised. Too many. She was boxed in. Rook stepped forward from the shadows, calm as ever. His throat was bruised, but his smile was back. "You really should have finished me," he said. She stood still, chest rising and falling. "No escape. Not this time." "You won't kill me," she said. He raised a brow. "Oh, if you wanted me dead," she replied. "I'd already be dead. You want something?" He nodded slowly. "Smart." He gestured, and his men lowered their weapons slightly. "You've built quite a legend," he said. "Predators fear you. Gangs whisper about you. You've turned the city into your hunting ground." He stepped closer. "I want that." She frowned. "You want to be feared?" "I want control," he said. "And fear is just a tool." He leaned in. "Work for me. I give you targets. Monsters. The worst of them. You do what you do best. In return, I keep you safe. Hidden. Untouchable." She stared at him, disbelief mixing with anger. "You kidnap children," she said. "You torture people. You're no better than them." Rook's smile faded. "The world isn't clean. Someone has to be on top." She took a step back. "Not you." His eyes hardened. "Then you die here." The men raised their guns again. For a moment, fear tried to take her. Real fear. The kind that froze your blood. Then she remembered her mother. The floor. The silence. And something inside her went still. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she moved. She sprinted straight at Rook. Shots rang out. Bullets tore through the air. One grazed her leg. Another ripped her coat. But she didn't stop. She slammed into him, driving him back toward the edge of the platform. They crashed near the tracks as a distant rumble grew louder. A train. An active one. Rook's eyes widened as he realized. "You're insane," he shouted, trying to push her off. She planted her feet, ignoring the pain, and leaned in close. "No," she whispered. "I'm done." The headlights burst from the tunnel, flooding the platform with white light. At the last second, she shoved Rook forward and leaped back. He fell onto the tracks. The train roared through, steel screaming, and when it passed, there was nothing left but silence. The men stood frozen, shocked. She didn't wait. She ran. Up the ladder, into the rain, into the night. Behind her, sirens began to wail. The city was waking up. And for the first time in a long time, the Quiet One felt something she hadn't felt before. Hope. But she also knew one thing. Rook was gone. But monsters never truly disappeared. And her war wasn't over yet. The rain had stopped by the time the Quiet One reached the edge of the city. Dawn was breaking, pale and thin, painting the skyline in soft gray. Sirens still echoed behind her, fading as distance grew. Another night ended. Another shadow lifted. She leaned against the cold metal of a bridge railing, chest heaving, leg burning where the bullet had grazed her. Below, black water flowed, carrying the city's secrets away. For a moment, she let herself be human. She pressed her forehead to her arm and breathed. The world didn't end. The sun still rose. And somehow, she was still alive. But she knew it wouldn't last. Rook was dead. She had seen it. But men like him built empires that didn't fall with one body. The Graveshade Syndicate would fracture, splinter, fight among themselves. Some would run. Others would grow meaner. Predators always adapted. She straightened and began to walk again. By noon, news would spread. Whispers first, then louder. The Quiet One killed Rook. Some would celebrate. Others would curse her name. But every monster in the city would understand the same thing. She was real. And she wasn't stopping. She made her way back through streets that were waking up. Vendors pulling open shutters. Kids heading to school. People stepping over the cracks without looking down. None of them knew how close the dark always was. She passed a small park and paused. A woman sat on a bench, holding a coffee with shaking hands. A little boy played with a broken toy car at her feet. The boy laughed, pure and loud, the sound cutting through the city noise. The Quiet One watched, something tightening in her chest. She could have had that. Once. Maybe. But that life was gone. She turned away before the ache could grow. As the day wore on, her wounds stiffened. She hid in back streets, stole moments of rest where she could, until the city's pulse slowed again. By nightfall, she returned to the abandoned subway, to her dark little room. She cleaned herself, changed bandages, ate in silence. Then she sat, back against the wall, lantern low. For the first time since she was 12, there were no screams in her head. No echo of her mother's last breath. Just quiet. Real quiet. She closed her eyes and slept. When she woke, it was deep night. A sound had stirred her. Not footsteps. Not drones. A knock. Soft. Careful. No one knocked down here. She stood, body tense, and moved to the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. "Who is it?" she whispered. A young voice answered. It's me. From a clinic." The girl. Her eyes widened. She opened the door, just enough to see the girl standing there, hood up, clutching a small bag. "You shouldn't be here," the quiet one said urgently. "I had to find you," the girl replied. "They said you saved me, but no one knew where you went. I followed rumors." She held out the bag. "I brought this. Bandages. Food. I don't have much, but I wanted to say thank you." The quiet one stared, unsure what to do. No one had ever come back. She slowly took the bag. "You shouldn't follow people like me," she said. The girl shook her head. "You're not like them. You didn't hurt me. You didn't even scare me." She hesitated, then asked softly, "Why do you do it?" The quiet one looked away down the dark tunnel. "For a long time," she said, "I thought I was just angry. Thought I was broken." She glanced back. "But maybe I just don't want anyone else to grow up like I did." The girl smiled, small but bright. "Then I hope you never stop." She turned to leave, then paused. "They'll tell stories about you, you know, make you into something scary." The quiet one nodded. "Let them." After the girl disappeared into the tunnels, the quiet one closed the door and sat back down, heart pounding. Something had changed again. This time, not fear. Connection. She opened the bag and found a folded piece of paper inside. On it, written in shaky letters, were two words: "Thank you." Her throat tightened. She folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her coat. From that night on, she moved a little differently. She still hunted monsters, still walked unarmed, still struck in silence. But now, when she moved through the dark, she carried something new with her. Not rage, not revenge, purpose. The city would never know her name, never see her face, never understand what she truly was. They would only know the feeling, the moment when every sound died, when every shadow seemed to breathe, when even the worst predators felt their hearts race for the first time. And in that moment, they would remember the rule whispered in fear. If you hear nothing, she is already there, unarmed, silent. And the reason every predator learns what it means to be hunted